Hey everybody, Scout Crafty here again, TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. Special Friday. Today is the last episode of 2023. And it's been a rough couple of years, right? But we're looking forward to 2024. Big changes ahead. And a lot of projects ahead. But what I wanted to talk about today, it's been a rough week for me. And you probably noticed it, my last video, I was a little bit preoccupied because my cat, Pipes, the one that you've seen before in the video, he went missing. And for 3 years, he's there every single day. He's an outside cat, but, he's been here since he was born. And feral cats, you really can't keep inside. They go, they get a little nuts. He does come inside every once in a while, but He was missing for a couple days, and it just made me nuts because you always think the worst, right? You ever have a pet that went missing or something? It's worse than if the pet actually died. If he passed away or something, you'd say, oh, okay, he passed away, he was old or whatever. But when they disappear, you're always thinking, oh, did somebody kidnap him? Did one of my neighbors eat him? Because, I live in New York, and that's a common thing, believe it or not. But thank God. He came back yesterday, but he was all banged up. I don't know if he got hit by a car. I mean, nothing that you could see, but he just came in and he looked like the worst hangover you ever saw. He came in, he couldn't even, but he's eating, he's drinking, he's sleeping, he purrs, but he still looks banged up. And thank God, my buddy Dean Collins from the heart of Route 66 Automobile Museum. Dean, he's a good he's been like a sponsor of the show since we first started. Dean had sent over a couple, a case of those temptation foods. So I've been, thank God, that got him to eat, and they got my other cats to eat. And thanks again, Dean, for that. So, it's been a rough couple days. You know how it is. When you have an animal, losing an animal is a tough thing. Sometimes I've never seen. You want to see a grown man cry? You know what I mean? I got to tell you something. More so than when you lose a person, sometimes an animal, because they get into your heart and stuff. And if they should pass away or something, it's a hard. Or you got to put them down or something. It's a hard thing because 15, 20 years you've had with that animal, and then all of a sudden you got to. Some people, not so much, but in my family, it was always a big thing. Couple things to get to today. First, let's talk real quick. We were talking about drills. Let's reiterate on that real quick. Okay, last episode, we had a nice little discussion about Black & Decker drill that I got my girlfriend for Christmas that she loves. And it's a nice little drill. I like it. However, we were talking about the chucks. And remember, I mentioned on the chuck that I said some of the chucks have a different feature in it. I've never had one that had it, but I've seen it on the internet or whatever. And my good buddy Stuart from Australia, Scrounge's Workshop, Stuart sent me an email and he says, John, it's funny, I heard that was a myth. So I said, I don't know. I've never had one of those drills that do it. And what I'm talking about is some of these drills, they say that when you tighten them up and when they're, they ratchet tight, you give it one click backward and it locks it in. I said, I've never had a drill, but I've always seen videos on it. And there are literally hundreds of videos on the YouTube saying to do that. Now, it's funny because I happen to have a friend that works for global distributors, and I called him up. He put me in touch with Tom Yen, who's he's an engineer. And I spoke to Tom, and I said, Tom, we were talking about this chuck, and he said, yeah. He goes, a lot of places, and he deals with every brand that comes into the United States. They're all where they're made in China, Germany, wherever. And he was telling me, he says, that turning back, once you tighten it, like I was telling you, when you do this, when you tighten your drill and you give it a tighten, he says, that's it. That's as tight as it's going to get. He says, by turning it back, he says, you're not doing anything. He says, that's as tight as it's going to get is when you grip it like that. As hard as you hold it, that's as tight as it's going to get. So whether or not it's a myth, I don't know. According to Tom, he says, there's no reason to go in. And I've never had a drill that had that option of clicking it back or something. So I wanted to know in the comments, have you had any experience with that? Yes or no, work or not? Because like I said, as far as Stuart and myself, we've never had a drill that had that feature or seen it work. but who knows, right? So just want to put that out there real quick. Okay, next up, now unlike that myth that I can't prove whether it's true or not with the keyless chuck, one thing I can prove is the key chuck. And I wanted to talk real quick. A friend of the show by the name of New York Chill Boy, chilling out in New York here. A New York Chill Boy said that he thinks that it's a myth as far as tightening the 3 holes here on a regular drill chuck. And when I was telling you, now first of all, one thing I want to get right off the bat, 90% of the time when I put a drill into the chuck, I tighten 1 hole because that's usually enough for any job I do. The only time you would tighten the 3 holes is if you had a job that had a possibility that you needed really secure, like you're going to spin the bit or something, or the bit was spinning or something like that, and it didn't have any flats on it, a round bit. So sometimes you might have to go the extra. You need a tighter grip. That's the only time you go to the 3, usually in the real world application. However, New York Chill Boy was saying that it was a myth because it's only put there so that you have a better convenience. Now, that's actually not true. Let me show you why. In order to understand how a chuck works, and they're all the same, whether you have a drill chuck or a lathe chuck, they all work the same way. So let me open this up so you can see what it looks like here. When you take the jaws off of a chuck, now you can't do it with a drill chuck, but you can do it with a lathe chuck here. If you notice, there's teeth here. You see these? Now there's a gear in there. You see that? That spins around, and I'll show you here. Let me take these jaws out. And the jaws have to go in a certain order. But I want you to look here. You see that little, there's a helical little spine in there that when I turn, you see it? That'll turn. You see it's turning towards the inside? That would be tightening. If I did it this way, it'd be loosening. Do you see that thing spinning in there? I don't know if you can or not. Anyway, what happens is when you put something into the drill chuck, like here, I'm going to do here, I'm going to tighten it up a little bit, and I'm going to show you here. Here, I'm going to tighten it. Now watch closely between the outer planetary gear and the inside shaft. Watch when I tighten it. Okay, now I'm pushing it in. That's as tight as I can get it. Okay, I can't tighten it anymore. Now watch, I'm going to go to the next one. Now remember, I couldn't tighten it anymore. Watch here and here. I just went a little bit further, you see? Now I'm going to go to the third one, here and here. Watch again. There you go. I was able to tighten up on each one. Couldn't tighten up anymore on this one, but I was able to tighten the other 2. And that's why, because what happens is these teeth grab on that wheel, and when you're over here, you have much more torque against them, that gear, than you do if you were on the other side. So if you want the maximum tightness, if your bit is spinning or something like that, you have to do the 3 holes. And any machinist will know that you tighten the 3 holes of a chuck on certain jobs that require, if it starts to slip, you'll see him always do the other 2. Okay, next up, I have this here that I wanted to attack. This here is a VACO. VACO was a company founded in the 40s, and they were known for their acrylic handles that they had. They had nice acrylic handles, and they went a lot into popular mechanics or popular science. You would see advertisements for different tool sets they had and screwdrivers and whatnot, and they all had those nice acrylic handles. When they turned into the 70s, they started making solderless connectors, and then they always made tool sets. VACO was bigger in the electronics field and people that did that kind of electronic work. They're still in business today. They apparently, I think their stuff is made in the United States, but they do look almost like they're knockoffs. I don't know. But I remember as a kid that getting the sets of, they had the different color nut drivers and hands. But then, they went from being a real quality like this handle. And like all acrylic types handles for screwdrivers, quality control plays a big part on how they last. Anybody out there ever hear of them, let me know. But you can see here, this handle is pretty much banged up. But you can see it says P-3 is a model on here. And there is something written there. Made in the USA is in there. Can you see that? You see that? Made in the USA. And there was a VACO, I don't know if that's written there. We're going to lose some of this. But here, you can see over here, it does say VACO on there. You can see that? VACO. So, chrome vanadium. And the tip is in good shape, you know. So I wanted to just clean this up, just do a cleanup and talk a little bit about the company, which a lot of you probably remember those little sets of screwdrivers. There was a big knockoff, Chinese knockoff that they looked like the VACO screwdrivers, but they were just absolutely junk. So that's why these got kind of a bad name. Everybody stayed away from them, but they were actually pretty good. Let's clean this up. Funny thing, this is why I can't stand magnetic screwdrivers. Some people like them for their certain things, but if you do any kind of metal work or something, you're always going to have filings around the vise or whatever. And this is always a pain when you have a magnetized screwdriver. Oh, what a pain. And forget it. If you put it down and it grows fur. Grows metal fur. Now this handle's pretty much shot, but what we usually do to bring a handle back, you know, somewhat back, is we go through the sanding pads, and they go from coarse all the way down to super fine, and you do it with water, and you sand each, you know, go through with each pad until you get to the next one. But whatever, when you got one that's this bad, what you could do is to eliminate some of the sanding, which you're going to be doing a lot of. See how bad that back looks? Take a razor blade. Now you just want to scrape off the coating here. You see what I'm doing? I'm scraping the coating over here. You're getting rid of some of that chips and breaks. You can see here how it'll come up, and the same thing on the side here. And especially we got paint flakes. Those are always hard to come off. But if you just take this back and forth and scrape off some of the plastic, it'll save you a lot of time with the coarse sanding. See the plastic that's coming off there? And again, you're just scraping it like this using a single edge blade. You see now, you see how that's smoothed out a little bit? You're going to do the next one, same thing. You're going to go all the way around. Now, unfortunately, you can't get this razor blade into those inside parts here. You got to kind of wrap a piece of sandpaper around a shaft or something to get in there. But you see what I'm doing? You see the shavings that are coming off there? That makes quick work of it. And again, you wouldn't do this with a real collectible. And I'm looking to make sure that I don't have the lettering, because I don't want to lose the lettering if I don't have to. But when you have one that's this bad, sometimes this is the quickest way, because you can't use sandpaper on a machine. If you tried to take this to a belt sander to do the same thing, it melts the plastic. So you have to find a different way to do it. And again, pick out any imperfection you might have and scrape it when you get to the end one way. Get your blade angled the correct way. And that's a quick way to get down past the initial scratches. Another way you could do it is, again, you can't use anything with a motor on it because it generates heat. But another way you could do it is to take a sharp file, and you could go over like this and kind of get rid of some of those deep scratches or gouges that you might have. Anything, as long as you're not generating heat and you're getting down to an area that you can see it's starting to bring up a little bit of a sheen. And again, you could do, even if you wanted to do the side, the finer the tooth on the file, the better the finish that it will leave. Again, you're just going across here, and you'll see it's coming up a little better and better each time. Now this is after running through the sanding pads, wet sanding it. You can see it's getting translucent, but now we got to polish it. And you see the back is coming out nice compared to what it was. But the tip, we have to address the tip. You can see here, the tip is a little bit gunjil. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the belt sander. We're just going to get that angle down. And it's always good if you have a particular screw you like to use, have a screw handy and you can see the fit. But I've done this a few times, so we're going to just take it to the belt sander and get this angle correct. You see what it looks like now? Now, before you start your belt sander, get an angle, okay? That's the angle I'm going to want. I'm going to turn it just like this. So get that angle into your muscle memory, and then when you turn on the belt sander, you're not sitting here and trying to find the angle while it's running. Just like this, we're going to do. Okay, next up, we're going to take some Plastex. I love this stuff. If you don't have it, buy it. It's fantastic. And we're just going to polish the handle, not being stingy with the Plastex. and then we'll just go back and forth and just buff it out. Now, I chucked it up into my cordless drill, and I wanted to get the base here, and I noticed a little bit of a wobble. So I said, wow, the shaft must be bent. I didn't even notice it before, so you know what that means. Okay, I was almost done with this, and I just realized that the shaft is slightly bent, and it's hard to see with the naked eye, but if you put something light behind, a piece of paper or something like that, and you hold a straight edge against it, you'll see where the light comes out. And I'm going to twist it here, okay, and you could see that bend towards the top. You could see that? I'm sorry, there you go. Can you see that there? See how it's close on the bottom? And so we got a little bend here. Now, I'm going to take it over to the Dake, and what we're going to do is we have a pair of V-blocks. Now, when you buy V-blocks, they come as a matched set, which means that this block is ground down and then it's cut in two, so that's exact, okay? That's why you buy them in sets. What we're going to do, there's two sides you could use. This is for bigger items. This is for smaller items. We're going to place it like this, the smaller one. Okay, and we're going to put this in here, and we're going to try and, with the Dake, straighten it out, and then we got to make sure we know where it is. But you can see that bend in there. It's a little harder to see. It's not so pronounced, but there you go. You can see it kind of whopping to the right. Let me see. Can you see that? Anyway, let's get to the Dake. Everybody's favorite, the Dake. Let's see the setup here. Okay, we got him on the edge here because I can't fit that handle that close, but there's just a little bend on the top there. And we're going to bring this down. Again, I'm holding it, so if it shoots out, it doesn't go hit me in the head. But you see, we're bringing it down there just a little bit. We have it's about 1.5 tons on there now. We're going to go very slowly because we don't want to put a reverse bend. Watch how much it springs back. See that? And then we'll look at it again. And that's what we're going to keep doing. Okay, now this is where the primary, the big bend is. Now you can see what you do is you hold this side down. I hope you can see this. And we'll turn this like this until you can see the high spot. Okay, you watch right here. And you'll see like a high spot. When that gets closest to that, that's when we're going to engage it. Okay, that's the high spot. I'm going to engage it. Okay, here we go. Holding the handle. Remember, metal wants to bend back to where it was at one time, so you don't have to go nuts. There we go. We got a little bit of spring. It's a little over 1 ton. Again, we're going to go slow. Spring back, and then we'll look at it again. Again, you could look at it down here, down the edge. You can see there's still a bend towards the end there, but that's how you figure it out. And you just keep going back and forth. Another way you could do it with a couple blocks of wood. You don't need a V-block, but let me show you why V-block comes in handy. You see here how it's not touching, or there's a little space here. If I turn this now you see it's touching. So that's the high spot. Loose, touching. So you get it right where it's touching most. You bring the Dake down a little bit. You loosen it up. And you do it again. You bring it down to the point where it's loose here, touching here. Okay. And then you bring it down again. And you do that a few times until you straighten it out. Okay, you know my favorite part. Remember what this VACO screwdriver looked like before we started. And we're calling this project done. Again, this is just a cleanup. I couldn't go too far because I want to keep all the lettering and whatnot, and we were able to do that. You could see here in the front here, it says VACO. Can you see that? VACO, made in USA, chrome vanadium steel, Phillips point, number 3, patent number. All that lettering came back. The handle came out nice. Remember what the back looked like. Back was really screwed up, but now it's nice and clear. Very smooth in the hand. Everything, all the lettering is maintained. And we reground the tip, as you saw. And you can see here how you can tell a good tip. We put it into the screw you're going to use, and you should be able to turn that around without it falling off. That's a good fit, and we have that. So there we go, VACO. Anybody have, I'm sure you have memories, the old timers, of those VACO sets that we used to see all the time. Nice little screwdriver. This was my neighbor George's, who passed away, and they threw this out. Remember? Found that in the garbage. Okay, so in closing, a little bit of a mosh there for the last video of the year. Normally, around New Year's Eve, we do our New Year's Eve lantern light off, and I'm going to be doing it again, but I'm not going to video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send my photos in to my good friend, Ken. You know him as Lots of Trains. Ken, we meet him up at Jacktown. Great guy. If you're going to light your lanterns this year, which we do for New Year's Eve, usually we started it off about 4 years ago for a good friend of the show, Bob the Lantern Guy, who passed away, like I said, about 4 years ago. And we've been keeping that tradition going of lighting the lanterns and getting them fired up and cleaned up and whatever for New Year's Eve. So I implore you, if you are going to do it, to take a picture, send it in to Ken. I'll have a link in the description to Ken's. He does it, he puts a montage together of everybody's lantern light. A lot of fun. So I'll have that in the link in the description to Ken's New Year's Eve challenge, lantern light off. A lot of fun. And we'll see you again on Monday. Hope you have a great New Year's Eve. Enjoy your weekend. Take care now. Bye-bye.